Caviar Dreamers.
Hello, Caviar Dreamers.
We have the best guest today. We have Jay Manuel.
America's Next Top Model, 18 seasons, household name, fashion correspondent for E, someone that has aged in reverse and that all of you will recognize. And now he wrote a book. As if we couldn't fangirl anymore over him.
I know. And he wrote it himself. The Wig, the Bitch, and the Meltdown. And it's causing quite a little stir.
It is. And it's causing a stir for a couple of different reasons, because I think people look at the cover and expect one thing, and then they open the book, start reading, and realize it's such an introspective, interesting journey into the psyche of the industry also.
Yes, I agree. It's a great, great book, but I'm super excited to speak with him about it. So we're going to have Jay on right now.
Yeah, let's just get right into it.
Right into it.
Hi, Jay.
Hi, Jay. You look gorgeous.
Gorgeous.
So gorgeous. I'm sorry I don't have my eyelashes on for you, but I give them a break when I'm, in between my filming days.
I love how you said that. You guys look great. What are you talking about?
You're so sweet.
Yeah.
I don't even tell you.
I know.
I grew up in England and watched every season of early America's Next Top Model, and
yes,
your role on the show was the role I was the most in love with. Like, everything you did was everything I wanted to do after going to fashion school.
Oh, really? That's so exciting.
Yes.
I know. 18 seasons.
Yes.
Right? 18 seasons. So fabulous. So great. And now you just came out with your new book, which I'm super, super excited. I mean, you sent me my copy, which I have right here, which is so good. The Meltdown, which is unbelievable. I love it that it says the devil also wears cheap shoes, which is so good. And I mean, obviously, it's inspired by your time on America's Next Top Model.
Correct. And by the way, that tagline that you just brought up, and the devil also wears cheap shoes, it's a bit of a nod, obviously, to Devil Wears Prada. And it's also to set up the tone of the book. I mean, it is a work of satire. It is a novel. So, for those out there going, ooh, is it real? Is it not? Well, a novel by definition means that it's fiction. And it is inspired by my time on America's Next Top Model and my time within the entire world of kind of reality TV and in fashion. And I got to experience a lot. So I had to channel it all through this work, which basically takes place behind the scenes of a fictitious model competition reality show, and it's called Model Muse.
Yes.
And the supermodel host is Keisha Cash.
Yes.
And in the book, you actually see how Keisha and Pablo Michaels, who's the protagonist, just inspired by me.
Inspired by you.
And then they kind of take off. And by the way, he really is not me. And that's what was so fun about writing fiction. There are definitely very real parts of me within that character, but there are a lot of parts of Pablo that are not me at all. And all the characters in the book took on a life of their own. But I will share one thing that a lot of people don't know, and I haven't talked a lot about, but the most vulnerable part of kind of my life story, I made it part of Pablo's story. And it's part of the main story with the big twist at the end. And that is his adoption story. And a lot of people don't know that I was adopted. And so it was something I did bring up when I was co-hosting on The View once, because Barbara Walters and I was doing Hot Topics, and her daughter's adopted. And I said something about being adopted, and Whoopi turned to me. She goes, I didn't know you were adopted. And I was like, nice to meet you, but I didn't realize how many people really responded to that on social media. I got tons of letters. So I felt like it was important to share a very vulnerable part of myself in the book, as the whole book is a vulnerable piece of emotion. I mean, it's meant to make you roar with laughter and cringe. And then at times it is very heartbreaking. And I wanted people to kind of go on that journey.
I want to go back to the adoption and everything else. But I first wanted to say is that it's so impressive that you did not have a ghostwriter. I want everyone to know that you wrote it yourself.
Yes. And that was a bit of a hurdle too. And I'm not going to lie, I'm really sharing my process with people. And that was when I decided it was time to write this novel. I wanted to have fun and write a novel. I thought, well, I'm not going to write it. I mean, people don't know me as a writer. And I did do writing when I was at NYU, but I was really afraid that the public would think, oh, well, he's not a writer. They like you in your lifestyle space. You know what I mean? I mean, you guys get it. Like people like to see you for one thing and that's it. And so I decided I wanted to kind of outline the story. I knew I wanted to do something even as my agent said, it was a little Black Mirror-ish. I wanted to write with this metafictional moment. It comes up in the last third of the book. It's the last act. And there's this huge twist that no one ever sees coming. I won't spoil it for people who've not read. And I knew I wanted to do this, and it goes against all literary conventions. So I was really scared to do it, but I outlined the story. I did all the character studies beyond just a typical kind of character breakdown. I sat down with 2 different psychologists, and I started digging in and looking at why individuals would react certain ways within A, the pressure cooker of the industry, and B, within the circumstances of the story. So I did all this work thinking I was going to help a ghostwriter out. Because I've seen people work with ghostwriters, and I know the disconnect that can happen. So I did all this work for a ton, literally, I'd say almost a year and a half, because I was working and stuff. And then when I got to the end, I looked at all this writing, and I shared it with a really good friend of mine who's a 1-hour script writer, just to say, do you think I have enough, just to hand over to somebody? And I sent it to her. She didn't respond to my email. She called, and I was like, oh my God, what do I do? She said, Jay, you're a writer. Would you just write the damn book? You have to write it. And I thought, I can't write it. And so she said, I really would encourage you. You're a writer. And that was the kind of the best. It was the beginning of this piece of work, which was I dove in that weekend and I started writing, a few chapters, just pre-writing. And then I just went for it, and I had a great first draft. And then, like all writers, even seasoned novelists, they tend to have a writing mentor, someone you can bounce things off of. So I was recommended to this woman I really connected with, and she primarily writes creative nonfiction, but she's also she was a writing professor and hosts writing workshops. So she loved my work. She loved the story. And then what I decided to work with her is bring every draft to her, and we would do a FaceTime because she was in Europe, and we would just talk through what my draft was, what I could focus on in the next draft. And I had a really, really kind of, it was a great learning process, learning my voice in writing something that is a piece of fiction. And
That's so interesting.
That is. And by the way, it's so impressive. And I just want everyone to know, because it's not easy to write a book. Because P.S., I'm doing a book and I'm using a ghostwriter. Heads up to everybody else, because I talk nonstop. I have horrible ADD. I made all my notes. But that's why I just want to say, kudos to you. It's just unbelievable, because it's just such a great book. And I'm sure you're going to come out with tons of other books, because you are so fabulous in general. So I just want to say, I know, so I want to go back to the adoption. Your parents are biracial.
Yeah, it's such a weird thing, because now that I'm talking about it, I've never had language around it, to be honest.
Yeah, I know. They're your parents. They're your parents. Yeah,
they're my parents.
People are now it's such buzzwords, right? It's like, your parents are your parents. I
agree with you. Yeah, they're my parents. I only know my parents. My sister and I were both adopted. We were never told we were adopted. It was one of these things, if I go all the way back in my memory banks, we always knew because they always celebrated it. So it was a thing that was just, to us, it was just normal. We felt like the wanted children. We were our family, and we knew we were adopted because we celebrated kind of the day we came home, because my parents had we had a baby book, right? Like most kids have a baby book,
yes.
Like a baby album. Our baby album even has pictures of the day we picked you up. And so this is mommy, this is daddy. And obviously mommy's not pregnant in the picture. So it was always really explained to us just so well as children that, you read about a lot of these kind of, I hate when I see shows about adoption or talk shows, and they do such a poor job, in my opinion, around explaining the psychology around what adopted children or adopted adults feel. Now, granted, everyone's story is individual, and I'm not here to say my story is the same as the person, down the road, but I just find that they never really have this whole, they never look at it from 360 degrees is my problem. They always look at adopted children never feel like they belong. Well, I never
don't
felt
agree.
that. I always felt like I'm a part of my family. So to kind of, I mean, there's a lot of questions around race these days. So when I have spoken about my ethnicity, because there's so much confusion around it, because Manuel is actually a South African last name. My parents are from South Africa. And they are also kind of a mix, right?
Yes.
But my kind of actual ethnic breakdown, which the country seems so fascinated by.
Yes. Well, you're so gorgeous. You're so gorgeous. People want the right milkshake so their kids look like you.
so the right milkshake. I'm biracial. My father is Black we're talking like biological father, Black from Africa. And my mother was European. So I'm just biracial. But growing up, my parents being from South Africa, and I grew up in Canada, even though I was born in the States, was that Canada, it was such a melting pot. So no one really discussed your race. So I felt so accepted growing up. And then I moved to New York when I was 19. I was going to NYU, and everyone was like, well, what are you? Because my last name, I pronounce it Manuel, and they think my name is Jay Manuel, like Hernandez or something like because Manuel is a Latin first or middle name, and so everyone thought I was Spanish. I'm like, no, I'm Black, and they're like all the girls, like Black girls, a lot of them were like, you're not Black, please, like whatever.
Exactly.
And then obviously I'm not white,
so
it was this. I felt this real weird sense of trying to find my own identity once I moved to the States, because people didn't accept that I grew up identifying as Black because my parents did, and they are mixed as well. But again, we grew up as just identifying as Black. And I know a lot of people have a hard time digesting that, but I'm not anything else. I'm not Spanish. I'm not white. So, I don't believe like biracial is a thing.
It's a thing. I get what you're saying. I totally understand that. But I think, everybody likes to label stuff, which is so draining, right? It's like that everyone has to be labeled. So.
Well, look at Halle Berry, okay?
Yes. You two look related, by the way. You and Halle Berry could be brother and sister.
So do you know how many people actually say that? And actually, Halle and I have talked about that I posted a picture not that long ago of Halle and I on the carpet where I was interviewing her, although I already knew her personally. But when you look at that photo, I mean, features wise, even our skin tone is the same.
Very.
And what I always, kind of felt strange about, is that the world accepted her as Black. And I always felt not accepted for being who I am. Even though I know who I am. And what's interesting is if you look at us, our features are similar, our skin tone's the same, and she's now, the first Black woman to ever, receive an Academy Award, still to this day, except yet she's biracial, but the Black community accepts her. And then I have still, even reading on social media, people saying, oh, Jay now claims he's Black. And I'm like, well, I've always,
yes, why are they? I know.
That.
Why do they? I mean, people are vicious, right? They say crazy shit.
Right. Yeah.
I know. So how did you just get involved in American? How did you start your career? Because I think that's what's so inspiring and so interesting.
Oh gosh. Well, there's the super long story. So you want to know how I got involved with Top Model or my career? Because I had a whole career before Top Model.
No, I know. First of all, wait, I just want to say something because you look like so young. Do you mind me asking how old you are?
I just turned 48.
Oh my God. Why is your skin so freaking perfect? You're ageless. Ageless. That's what I'm saying. It's like people don't realize that you look so freaking young. So I know you had a whole career. I mean, 18 seasons of America's Next Top Model.
Yeah.
So what did you
do? So how did I get into it? Well, so the way I got involved in the industry was really as a makeup artist. And it's a really fun, long story, which we could do like a whole other chat on. Because I really moved to New York to be an opera singer, and I was at school and at NYU.
I can't take this multi-talent renaissance.
And makeup was really kind of like this hobby, and the way I got into it was really my first voice teacher was in Martin Scorsese's The Age of Innocence. At playing an opera singer, she's the first person you see in the film, and ultimately the photographer that the studio hired to get images of her, she asked me, can you come help me get ready? You're better at this stuff than me. He saw my work. He's like, you're talented. It's a long story, but I was like, oh no, I'm at school, da, 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 da. And then I was thinking, well, we all need pocket cash. So I called him up because he gave me his card. Said, this is my class schedule. He hired me. He kind of snickered at, how young and naive I was, which I absolutely was. He hired me for a job, and I did a good job. And then at the end of that job, he says, well, I'm doing a CD cover for the Metropolitan Opera next week. I'd like to hire you to put, the subject in character. And I was like, oh yeah, I could do that. Like fake it till you make it, right? I knew nothing about putting people in character. And they said, yeah, we're shooting Luciano Pavarotti. And that was the first celebrity that I worked with. So fast forward, you know, that whole shoot it was really insane how that went down because he was an idol of mine at the time. But an agent saw my work. I got into the industry and was doing makeup, and then eventually moving into creative direction where you actually art direct, because a lot of my clients saw that I was kind of looking at everything and they always asked my opinion. So I had started working with Tyra. Actually, she was presenting at the GQ Man of the Year Awards. This was in like 1996 or something. And basically her makeup artist missed their flight and she was in New York. And I was already an established makeup artist and was shooting with major celebrities like Iman. And, you know, I've even shot with Naomi Campbell at the time and was doing Vogue portraits and working with like the cast of The Sopranos and all that stuff. So I was recommended to her and she goes, well, I'll try him out. He can come kind of do my makeup for free as a trial. Which is kind of funny. And she talks about this. It's kind of funny because I could have just said, well, no, girl.
Yes.
You know, but I really respected her so much at the time, and every kind of thing that she overcame and what she represented to so many people at that time. And she, you know, she was this big Victoria's Secret angel. And I was like, oh, well, you know, I love her. So I will go do this for free and we'll see what happens. Well, we clicked. Next week I was working with her again. You know, I think we were in St. Bart's for Victoria's Secret, and then that, you know, the rest was history. So when she came up with the idea for Top Model, we had been working for years, and she actually called me, and I have a version of this kind of sequence, kind of inspired by this moment in my book. It's in chapter 3 called A Show Is Born.
Yes.
Where Keisha calls Pablo at like 6 a.m. And that's really what happened. Tyra called me at 6 a.m, but she lived in LA. So when I saw caller ID, I was like, oh my, you know, home landline, remember? Yes. I was like, what's wrong? So I picked up the phone, like, what's wrong? And she's like, I've got this idea, but I'm gonna need your help. And that's kind of how Top Model started. So I didn't really have an audition for the show. When the show finally, she pitched it everywhere. Everyone turned it down. UPN said yes. And then, of course, she wanted me to do her makeup on the show. And then during that first season, they had producers who knew nothing about fashion. They weren't part of the industry, and reality was in its infancy. I mean, people were like, it was a clumsy start. People just trying to figure out what reality was.
Yes.
There was only The Real World, and Survivor had just started.
Yes.
There was nothing else. There were no other reality shows on TV. So these reality producers knew nothing. And we were literally like a day before a photo shoot. And they said, oh, well, we kind of had something set up, but they fell through. And Tyra turned to me and said, you know everyone, can you take this over? So I called the manager of Pier 59 Studios, set up a deal there so we could shoot there, called in, I knew all these famous photographers, called in friends, favors, and I just started producing the shoots behind the scenes. So by like the 4th episode, Tyra says, oh, Jay just has to be the producer of photo shoots. And she was like, we should make him like the creative director. So in season 1, when I still had black hair, you see me kind of turn into my role slowly. When we got to Paris, I just showed up one day, and even though you saw me in the show, now I was the creative director. It was kind of weird, but that's how the whole thing started.
That was unbelievable. I mean, that's so amazing. Isn't that great? So do you watch any other reality TV at this point?
Well,
not that you have to watch me at all. I mean, it's not a big deal. I mean, I don't take offense.
Right now, I'll be very, very honest with you. I haven't watched any probably the only reality show that I catch just to kind of give my brain a break at the end of the week has been probably RuPaul's Drag Race.
We're obsessed with RuPaul, by the way.
Yeah,
we are obsessed.
But I think just because of the book and the writing, what I didn't realize, well, I knew it was going to be isolating, and I knew it was going to be a lot of work. And I am kind of working on part 2 of the book. So,
good.
And the book, my book, this first book released. So it's like I'm constantly it's all about my life is the book right now, to be honest with you. And that takes so much focus. So I haven't been up to date with anything in quarantine other than living in my world of the book.
No, you have to. But I'm just saying, because one of your top models, Eva Marcel, was on Housewives of Atlanta.
Yes. That's right. Yes.
Did you follow, did you watch her at all on that? Like,
I did see a little bit with her on it and saw clips, and even I, you know, obviously stay in contact, and she was actually really lovely to, the day my book released, we did like a live signing with Premier Collectibles, which is this company that's been around before, you know, the pandemic, where they, and I don't know if this is something you're even thinking about with your own book, they do celebrity book signings and they do them virtually.
oh,
And
good.
so you do this signing, and then what they do is this link stays up, and they basically act like a bookstore, except when people buy your book from them, it's signed. So,
so that's well, good. That's good to know, because by the time my book launches next year, I hope we're through the pandemic, that you could be on tour and I could be on tour, but God only knows what's going to happen.
Even outside of a tour, a lot of huge celebrities, like big stars, and like everybody has done this, because it's a place where, let's say you're not touring, where your fans are, but they want one of your books autographed. So that's what Premier Collectibles does. That. And even beyond, so Eva helped host the launch of that the day my book released, and we had a lot of fun.
She's so good. She's great. Yeah. She is so great.
Yeah.
It's funny. It would be so interesting the way RuPaul does an All-Stars. It would be interesting to do an America's Next Top Model All-Stars with some of the winners pitched against each other in today's climate, because the climate has changed so much.
Sure.
And I know you'd said when you kind of tried to part ways with the show in season 8, in cycle 8, that, you know, some of the photo shoots you were a lot less comfortable with. Do you think the show will be produced a little differently if you started from scratch again today?
Well, it would all depend on who is involved in producing that show. I think, you know, for me, and that was kind of news to a lot of fans, because the public did not know that I did leave the show in cycle 8. It was, my contract was finished. And the way my contract was written, because a lot of questions have circulated, why didn't you talk about it? Because my contract at that time prohibited me from speaking to the press about anything like that. So the network and the team had 3 months to cast someone. They could not find somebody to do, to kind of fill the role. And they came back to me very last minute to do a one-off cycle. And then after that cycle, they asked me, would I consider staying again? And I did, but it was a different culture, different climate. In the early seasons, I was in charge of all the creative, and I brought on all the creative talent. By the time, you know, post cycle 10, all I was in charge of 100% producing were the final runway shows. The photo shoots I consulted on, but I wasn't in charge of even that creative anymore. So it depends on who does the show. If they were going to do another All-Stars, or like a swan song cycle, which there have been so many rumors about this cycle 25. I would like to see, I would wish it well. I would wish them success. I think there is a way to do a version of that show in today's climate that's not, if they made it more kind of rooted in reality again, the way the show started, which gave it its magic, I think that would be great. And if they stopped with the kitschy ratings grabbing ridiculous moments because the show jumped the shark, I think it could be real. I'll be honest with you. You know, people keep asking me, "Oh, would you go back? Would you go back?" Look, I just got to be really honest. And I mean, we all know the world that we live in, and I think people love to live in hope and etc. I don't think anyone would ask me to come back and be a part of the show again. I think my book, although it is fiction, it's just ruffled too many feathers.
Yeah, I understand it, but it has to be entertaining, and I understand. But you know what? You were on the show a very long time. It is fiction, you know, inspired by. I totally get it. But, you know, people have to suck it up sometimes.
And those are also, those are your stories to tell.
Yes.
However you want to tell them.
And I love that you say that, because ultimately one of the things that I've been encouraging a lot of young writers is everyone has a story to tell. Everyone, whether you feel like you want to write something or have someone write for you, everyone has their POV and their story. And ultimately my book, it's not about the fun, salacious scenes that make you laugh. Yeah, that the book is meant to entertain, but there is a gravitas to the piece. The whole book is ultimately the journey of awakening to oneself, learning that we all of us kind of grow up reaching for external validation, but the one that makes the difference is internal validation, our own validation. And so that's something everyone can relate to. And really the cast of characters, and I'm rooting it and on what where I lived and what I'm inspired by, because I think that's how fans will connect to the piece. But they'll realize there is more than just even that in the book. There's a story about the theme about cost of fame, kind of power struggles within the workplace, which is, again, something everyone can relate to. You don't have to work on a show to relate to that.
No, egos.
Also,
painful.
Yeah, egos. And then also dealing with looking at just how the entertainment industry deals with intersectionality and also Black women's identity and how that affects, a Black woman in the public eye. And I know that's something I talked to Eva a lot about with this book. So this, with Keisha Cash's character, she's not an antagonist. We look at her from a 360 perspective. You want to feel her vulnerability. You want to feel empathy for her. You want to understand, why is she doing what she's doing?
I agree.
And so that's really the whole purpose of the piece. It's not meant to take anyone down or anything. It's really just to really examine and look at life and relationships.
That's so important. And I know that it's ruffled people. I mean, are you still talking? I mean, so Tyra obviously is having, I don't want to just say that, but she's obviously upset. And I think she should be a little more self-reflective and be like, you know what? This can help me, whatever it is. I love Jay. We've had an amazing history together.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that would be,
that's how to be honest with you, that's how I look at it. I mean, the book, all of the characters in the book, they took on lives of their own. Exactly. When I wrote the book, and I'm talking when you write, it's draft after draft.
Yes.
I mean, literally even my draft 3, I remember had a 3A, a 3B, C, D, E, and then I still kept going with draft numbers. But ultimately, the characters became their own kind of entities. I was not, thinking of the people they're inspired by. I was trying to tell a very specific story. And the piece is not written from a place of negativity or malice. And honestly, I have really nothing but love and respect for Tyra, because you know what? We're all human beings.
Yes.
We all struggle. We all grow through on our own journeys. We grow through our own mistakes. So I don't have anything but love for her and for really everyone that I encounter. You have to get to a place of understanding why we're in certain relationships in our lifetime, really.
I love it. You're so therapeutic.
And what I find so interesting is, I would say, witnessing, I worked in the fashion industry, worked with Margaret, obviously, for a really long time. I'm now witnessing reality TV happening around us. The fashion industry and the reality TV industry are the most boundaryless industries you could possibly be in. So I found the phone conversations like, come over, you have to come over right now. I need you right now. It's so funny. Like, to work in those two industries and have them molded in a show must have heightened any emotion that anyone working on that show had.
Oh, of course. And I love what you just said about, looking at reality TV today, because that's another kind of somewhat of I guess a statement, if you will, that I'm kind of making about the industry in the book. Because I look at reality TV as the birth mother to social media, which is something everyone has experience with.
You're right.
And look at what we do today. We walk around with our phones and we shoot what we want people to see. We make sure that we look our best when we do our selfies, etc. So we're constantly subconsciously saying to the world, look at me and love me for what I'm not. And what does that ultimately do to the human spirit? And so that's why I actually, and right on the first page of the book, it doesn't spoil anything. Before chapter 1, I wrote this quote right on the front page. I kind of say, the world of reality TV is not real. And yet reality television has morphed into reality. I've worked in this world of smoke and mirrors. And when the smoke dissipates, the mirror reflects the truth. And so going back to what you just,
I know, I just got the chills too, considering I'm filming right now.
and think about the people that we are filming with, because in my book, Pablo ultimately has to realize that Keisha is really a mirror for himself. And so you can't quite look at someone that you're, because obviously the book has a journey and he reaches this point where he's looking at her and going, wait, who is this person? But what he ultimately has to realize is that he's really seeing himself in her. And what the real profound part, which always gives me goosebumps, when I handed my manuscript into my agent, and I had to finally let it go at the end, and I did one last read through the book, and I thought, oh my God, it's not just that, oh, there's a little bit of me and Pablo. There's actually a bit of me, Jay Manuel, in every character of the book.
Yes.
Even the characters we don't like, or even the humorous ones. Like, I really am every character in the book. And if I don't admit that, wow. And so that really opened my eyes to really exploring a really big, kind of deeper side of myself. Like, you have to own all of that, the good and the ugly, and, you know, all of it.
I agree. I think it takes a lot of self-realization. I think you are so grounded. Now, let me just ask you some personal questions. Have you been in therapy?
Sure.
Because you are so therapeutic. Wow. Maybe you have to be like, maybe you have to like coach a lot of people.
Well, I think where I kind of found a lot of my tools were from definitely some really important books in my life that I kind of use as tools. Like every morning, it doesn't matter what time I have to get up. Like if I was shooting and had to be somewhere at 6 a.m., I get up an extra half hour early. I read from different kind of daily readings, and I try to write in, I don't call it a journal. It's kind of more of like I don't know what it is. It might even turn into a self-help book one day. Who knows? It's kind of this document that I type into. But you know, but like Eckhart Tolle's A New Earth was a book that changed my life. And I actually wrote him a letter, and he wrote me back. The Power of Now.
Wow.
Well, no, it was actually A New Earth. I read
A New Earth, and he did The Power Now, right? Also,
he did as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he did. And then, you know, I do have, like I said, you know, the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying was another big awakening aha book for me, The Seat of the Soul. But, you know, even working with this book, talking and speaking with psychologists, like Dr. Ramani Devarsala, who has the book, you know, of Should I Stay or Should I Go? How to, you know, the tagline is how to deal with, like, you know, leave a relationship with a narcissist. She's such a powerful woman who really understands kind of the damage that narcissists leave in their wake, and the kind of these people who are dealing with narcissistic abuse. It really rocks their confidence. And so I like to say that I've been in kind of the world of therapy through a lot of these kind of greats out there. And some of them I've reached out to, and I'm like Dr. Ramani. I love when I even have questions, like I can text her. And so, yeah.
You're so self-realized. I just very deep, which is so important. And I think in the reality space, it's hard to find a lot of depth. Just being what I face myself. Because I always say it's just like, I always try to be, you know, my most authentic self. And then when I'm faced with other people who aren't authentic, hypocrisy, nothing makes me more nauseous, right? That's what I always say. And it's just like, I deal with that on a daily basis.
Yes.
And
well, you must also struggle with, and it's still a struggle for me, but I'd love to know how you deal with it. A lot of people talking out of two sides of their mouth. So you get a lot of gaslighting, and then they do completely different. And I'll be really honest with you, as much as I like to stay grounded, I still have the most trouble dealing with that. Like that whole idea of people really, because in our industry, they love to gaslight you and say, da 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 da, or, oh no, you're being too sensitive. Oh no, it's not that. And da 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 da. And then they totally do the opposite thing.
Oh yeah, it's happened to me a lot. And you know what it is? It's like when I got on the show, I was like, this can't be real. This can't be fighting. This can't be this. Yeah. But people are so worried you're going to take their place in life. Or like I helped one woman on my show, and I'll just say, Danielle, I felt sorry for her. She came on back as a friend, and she was so unstable. I sent her to my real life therapist. You know, I'm thinking I'm going to fix people. You know, and her whole goal was to be famous. I feel like if you're going on a reality show just to be famous, and not use it as a platform or whatever it is, you know, it's not going to work. And her whole goal in life is to be famous. I'm just like, oh, what is the point of that? And I was just trying to convince her, you know, I wouldn't get married just for TV. She like wanted to just have a TV wedding. I'm like, how annoying is that? I mean, to me, you know, social media is my, you know, for business and this and that, but I like to be in the moment. My team has to force me to do my social media, you know, because I want to enjoy the people I'm around.
Yeah.
So you want to put out content that brings something to the world. Like I think
positive, you know, something positive and interesting and good, inspiring
interesting
thing. Not like, oh, look at me, I'm so fucking fabulous. Because that's not what it's. I mean, to me, that's not what it's about.
No, and I love that you say that, because, you know, even with my book, like, because there are these very deep messages there, and I took a page out of the Wachowskis' book, and not that I'm even comparing myself to them because they're so great, but I did have the opportunity to work with them on the press junkets for Matrix 2 and 3, not the first film. And so I saw kind of their level of passion, and I'm just like you. I get really annoyed by people who want to do something to be famous. You've got to do something because it's your passion.
Yes.
But what I loved about the Matrix film, especially the first one, which had nothing to do with, but what I loved about that film is that everyone went to that movie thinking they were going to see this really cool sci-fi movie with really new effects. And they came out of that film thinking like, oh my God, I was in church. Like there was this deep life message. And I'm not like I'm comparing my book to the Matrix. However, what I want to point out is like stories of substance are always passed over for viral sensation. And that's just the world that we live in today. And that's why so many people want to just be famous. So I had to think cleverly, kind of like what the Wachowskis did in creating a book that looks like it's, that it's like just this like salacious sensation from the title, like the wig, the bitch and the meltdown, to the characters on the cover, to, and then you read it. And what I'm getting right now are all these letters from people. My book only released a couple weeks ago, but they're like, I did not expect to get this out of your book, because I thought it was going to be just, you know, the salacious part. But it was important. And I'm glad that even people, now that they're reading the book, they're realizing that the bitch part actually in the title speaks to a situation, like life's a bitch, payback's a bitch. It's not talking about a person, but people are reading the title, making assumptions. But again,
that it's Keisha or something like that. Or somebody,
I had to engage the public, though, kind of similar to like what they did in The Matrix, to make them think they're getting one thing, because our world only knows virality and viral sensation, but then slip in something with a little more meaning underneath.
Yeah, it's like the trailer teaser.
Yes. Did you like it? Did you like the trailer I did?
Yes, it was like the trailer teaser, and the title's like the trailer teaser. But then it's like really, it's deep content, which is absolutely amazing. So, what's next for Jay Manuel? Jay Manuel. I want to say it correctly, not Manuel. Everybody, it's Jay Manuel.
You know, for me, as I had said,
the next book, and honestly, at first I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to do part 2, because the way the book ends, it does allow to open, you know, part 2 of the book, which I've not told anyone. I'll give you guys a little hint. It's a bit of a redemption story, which is great, but it opens with a big bang. I have started it, but I really, when I handed in my manuscript last year, I did not realize how addicting writing became. I really thought writers were like, a lot of times they're like, oh, I need silence, all this stuff. I always thought it was a lot of like bullshit,
you know, a lot of bullshit. But it really was true. And when I handed in my manuscript, I actually did crash. Like I thought, I kind of went through a mini depression, like my dopamine levels crashed. I really enjoyed kind of doing my final, you know, polishes of the draft. And then I felt like I didn't have anything. So one day I woke up and I'd had this dream, and I just wrote out this treatment. I thought I was going to write a page. I wrote, it's like 7 pages for this kind of dystopian, Black Mirror-ish, takes place in the near future story, has nothing to do with these characters. And I sent it to my writing mentor and I said, do you think this could be kind of cool? And she just wrote back, yup, period, you're a writer. And so I didn't know if I was going to do that first or this other book, but I did start the part 2 for The Meltdown, and people are asking for it. So I think I have to dig into and really finish this. So that's definitely what's on the ticket right now, because we're still in quarantine.
Yes. So, yeah, we're not going anywhere major. No travel these days. I mean, which is super. And I mean, and you're in, I don't want to say to everybody what town
I'm in Connecticut.
You're in Connecticut, and you're in,
the city, yeah.
you're in the town with where Emily, my ghostwriter, lives. So I'm coming to visit you. I get COVID tested twice a week, so
We're safe.
we're safe.
Excellent. Well, when you come out here, you're going to have to let me know so that we can
totally
hang out. Don't forget, you got my number. Text me.
Yes, I'm totally texting. Wait, can I ask you another personal question? Do you have someone special in your life?
I do.
That's
usually where I leave. That's usually where I leave it, because then everyone digs.
Yes.
Oh,
okay. Fine. Has it been a long time, or is this a long time?
Yeah.
I know. Wow, you kept that private.
Don't you love how I just like keep that real simple?
Yeah, but that, you know what? I like that. There's certain things that need to be kept private. I understand.
You know, I never really understood when people. I think it's a conscious choice if you're going to put, you know, relationships in the public eye. I just. You know, to me, I just feel like already, you know, when I'm in the grocery store, you get like every question in the book. I don't know.
I know. Like, where's your bank account, Jay? I mean, I know people, you go into the grocery, I get it. Yeah. I mean, people see me, you know, my husband's on the show with me, but my kids, people are like, you're the worst mother, because I only spoke about 2 of my kids that I have an estranged relationship with that are my stepchildren. Between my husband and I, we have 6 children. I birthed a child. I keep those very private. They've never been on the show. I never mention their names because those are private relationships. And my children are older. They don't want to be mentioned. And I keep it that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, it's interesting. And what I guess with when you are, I mean, kind of putting things out there publicly, people love to blur the lines because that's the world that we're in right now. Yes. And especially right now, people are trying to penetrate through that shield of social media because everyone's realizing a lot of it is not real, or it's just one facet of you. And there are multiple facets to all of us. And I will share an interesting experience I had recently because I was on a phone interview with a journalist. Well, we'll call him a journalist. I don't know. I've since researched further and found out he's a little messy. I'm not even going to say his name. Okay. I've just not had an experience like this in all the years of doing press. But, you know, he started off, he'd read my book. And by the way, my publicist was on the line because it was a phone interview. You know how it is. They connect you, right?
Of course. Yes.
So he's listening on the line, but publicists try not to jump in unless things really, you know, go crazy. So he's on the phone. The journalist says to me, oh my God, I read your book. I love this. I love how he loved that whole metafictional thing that's in the last part of my book.
Section,
so he really hyped it up and spoke about it in detail. So I knew he read the whole book. And then he said, okay, so now let's just like dive into some other questions. He asked some pointed questions, which I thought were very fair. Like, you know, did I feel that I should have like gone to any of the, you know, people that this is inspired by and let them know beforehand, which I thought was a fair question.
Yeah, it's a fair question. It's a fair question. But you don't have to clear it. I personally don't think you have to clear it with everybody. I mean,
no. Yeah, you don't. But here's where he crossed the line and I didn't know how to deal with it because I like to look at people and think I'm dealing with like nice people like you guys, you know, cool and blah, blah, blah. No. And so I'm always sometimes a little naive and still at 48, I was like, I didn't see it coming. But then he started challenging me like, well, I've gone back in multiple interviews, et cetera. And it's really interesting right now. You know, I'm really curious why you've never identified yourself as gay. I was like, wait, what? And I was like, well, wait a minute. And in my mind, I knew what was going on, but I didn't want to say anything and I didn't know what to say to him. So he says this to me and I said, well, here was my answer. I do find that kind of odd, seeing as most people realize from when I started on Top Model, you know, it was kind of clear that, you know, Miss J, my sexuality on the show, we were just who we were. We didn't have to hide who we were, but we were just ourselves. And then when I presented how many times I said, if you were doing your research, I presented awards at the GLAAD Media Awards. I don't know how many times, you know, representing gay men. And then the first time they ever broadcasted their awards, the GLAAD Awards from the Kodak Theater in Los Angeles, I was the host of their main red carpet and backstage as a member of the LGBTQ plus community. So I don't understand, like, do I have to wear a shirt that says I'm gay? I didn't understand it, but he then just started, it was like attack after attack on my personal identity. And so that's why, going back to your question of like, why I don't talk about certain parts of my personal life, it's because I realize it opens you up to things that have nothing to do with your work. And I wish I had the foresight, although I always talk about lessons. He was a great lesson, because I'll tell you this much. If anyone went there and started challenging my identity, he went as far to say as also challenging my ethnicity.
What?
I was like, wait, what? What does this have to do?
What an asshole.
That's outrageous.
Yeah,
That's
really
outrageous. Was. That is so terrible.
Awful.
Well, the good thing was his little story came out, and he actually didn't talk about the book in the story. He turned it into a negative piece where he was trying to attack me and my values, but people started attacking him for not doing his job by talking about the book. So,
that's right. You are so
yes.
well loved. No one's going to take you down.
No.
I mean, and your book, I mean, this is just so impressive. I love it so, so much. I didn't get totally to the end yet, just only because I've been filming, but I'm crazy for it. And I can't wait. I'm going to finish it tonight because I don't film on Mondays. I don't film on. All right, so just tell everybody where to find you.
So you can find me on social media at Mr. Jay Manuel on both Twitter and Instagram and Facebook at Jay Manuel Official. But so people looking for my book, it's really everywhere books are sold, from Amazon to Apple, like everywhere, Barnes and Noble. But if they go
we're
to
going
my
to do a swipe up, and I'm going to do a
good.
swipe up, and we'll do
So my
that.
website just has everything, which is just jmanuel.com. Yeah.
I love it. Well, I'm super excited. I can't wait to make my way to Connecticut in the next few
over.
weeks. So yeah, I'll be there in the next few weeks because I have to get my ass going with my book.
Well, definitely don't forget. I'll call you out on it if you come to, if I see you on social media and you're in Connecticut and you didn't call me, Margaret, I'm coming for you.
No, all right. No, I'm totally, because your skin, I got to see it in person. It's so flawless. I can't handle it. Gorgeous and smart and fabulous and deep. And this was like amazing. Thank you so much for coming on. You are so inspiring.
Thank you for letting me come on and just I prattle. I don't know. You're too easy to talk to. So I was just going a mile a minute. So.
No, I love every second. That's what we love. You're so inspiring. I mean, I feel like I had a therapy session. I feel so inspired. I feel very lifted. You made my day. Thank you. And maybe I think my month.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks, Jay. Thanks so much. How great was it?
That was,
I want to say right, Jay Manuel.
Jay Manuel. I am just I think in the fashion industry and, as we said, the reality industry, it's very easy to get jaded and run into a lot of shallow characters.
I agree.
So when you get to chat to someone that you've idolized for such a long time. I mean, I'm open to say I'm fangirling on this one.
Of course. First of all, I was dying over him. I could stare at him the whole time. So I'm sitting here with my mouth open. and his stories are so magnificent.
So deep and so enriching and so real and authentic. And it's so inspiring to see someone authentic in those two industries.
Yes. I mean, the book, The Wig, the Bitch, and the Meltdown. And it's really so great. And listen, characters are inspired by. I don't think you have to go clear it with everybody who you're inspired by. Oh, just so you know, you inspired me. It's like everybody else is not the boss of you.
Well, no, and like we said in the intro, you have your own story to tell. So you could say whatever the heck you want. Yes. It's your story to tell. It's not a big deal. But of course, we work in two industries of egos, of self-centered psychotics, psycho egos,
and everybody thinks everything's about them.
Well, and that's the problem. I thought it was also interesting. We've talked about this on the podcast before. That Jay said, the show lost its magic a little once they started these like circus hoopla crazy things for the headlines. And we've said it before with even like The Bachelor, how when things are authentic and they're about relationships and achievements and things like the authenticity is there, it's so much more interesting to watch.
I agree.
Reality TV is skating away from that.
I agree. And I like to always say on Jersey, sometimes I think I look at some of the other franchises and I do think we have authentic relationships on my show. And I think that's why there's a lot of pain, emotion, and that's why people love the Jersey Girl. So I'm just going to say we keep it real in Jersey.
I think COVID also has been fun to see shows. Jersey always has, been true to itself. I feel like the Jersey is a very true representation, but, it'll be interesting when they start filming other shows and they can't take these glamorous trips all over the place. It'll be interesting to see how that affects the relationships of the
Exactly. I agree. Listen, I think New York is also very authentic to themselves because they have real relationships.
They do have real relationships. Yeah.
Not based in shallow bullshit, but based in shallow vodka glasses.
I was just going to say,
I know.
Based in a Bacla Pinot.
Exactly. Okay. Well, thank you, Caviar Dreamers. I hope you enjoyed this because it's great. It was so great. And you guys must buy The Wig, The Bitch, and The Meltdown. It's a great book. I'm finishing it tonight.
And we're going to have to swipe up on all of our stories. So
Yes.
you could just swipe up and buy it. You got to get it.
You guys are going to love it.
Get some summer reading in.
Get some summer reading. It's salacious with a lot of deep messages. Okay.
So you could find us at Caviar Dreams Tuna Fish Budget on YouTube and Instagram. We have episodes every Wednesday at The Real Margaret Josephs, at The Life of Mrs. B. And we'll see you next week.
See you next week, Caviar
Keep dreaming.
Dreamers. Keep dreaming.
No one